the way they think. When it comes to arguing about stuff, right? Not when it comes to whatever, but at least that way, if they insist on persisting in their beliefs, they'll do a better job of convincing other people. So Megabro just sent me this shit about cognitive styles and the two kinds of thinking. One of them which is dynamic, one of which is static. Huh? Okay, well let's talk about let's just first talk about dynamic and static, okay? So dynamic is like your NE types, basically. That is to say, we don't like empty time, is what it says up there. I love the wording. We don't like empty time, and we want to fill it with shit. And space people, they don't like empty space, and they want to fill it with objects. Now, my space may be filled with objects, but that's because I like to fill it with objects. It's because I just don't do enough maintenance work to get rid of the unnecessary objects. So the thing about this is, this dynamic static thing is the two styles of thinking are going to lead to direct conflicts if people don't have an understanding of when and under which frames which style should be preferred. They each have preferred contexts. We want to use fragmentary analytic thinking for certain things, and we want to use dynamic associative synthetic thinking for other things. So analysis is defined by most sources as the division of a whole into clearly delimited parts. Analytical work is meant to delineate boundaries, whereas synthesis is akin to associativity, i.e. the association of two or more concepts by fuzzy, rapid connections whereby one occurrence immediately evokes others to mind, resulting in a coherent synthetic image with blurred internal boundaries. The epitomization of dynamic cognition formed the explanatory basis for the nature of mental processes and the theories of associationism. Aristotle first advanced the idea that spontaneous mental images can converge so closely together that the similarity or contrast of multiple associations emerges on the basis of contiguity. Later, John Locke argued that ideas of any degree of complexity emerge from the process of associating simple sensations. In this case, he contrasted the association of ideas against purely semantic connections, which, in his opinion, were secondary. So, at the social level, differences between dynamic and static types of the social level correspond to the contrast between initiators and finalizers. Dynamics are stronger at the beginning of an activity. That's like me. They easily move quickly and enter the realm of normal activity. Rapid transitions from previous states into a new process of change itself. This is their customary life because, especially ENTPs, we're four times over time people. We're pure time. We get the time angle on each of these things. So we're like super chaotic. ENFPs at least have their feelings, which are space, but that's not a good one to have for space. And they have TE too. Regardless, the objectives of static are more stable and reliable. They know what they want and are able to maintain long-term focus upon it. They arrange priorities in their life and work and well-differentiated primary and secondary objectives that are rarely reversed. Statics are more successful strategists and tacticians. They know what to do much better than how to do it. Right. So I've always said this for years, that I am a much better tactician than I am a strategist. I love tactical battles. I don't really like big picture strategic work because there's not enough seat of the pants adjustment. On the psychological level, let's see here. A predominance of dynamics in any social group. Go ahead, Megro.
I thought it said statics know what to do better than how to do it. That would be static.
Yeah. Statics are more successful strategists than tacticians. They know what to do much better than how to do it. Right. That's strategy. Strategy is what to do, then tactics is how to do it. Tactics is seat of the pants. Oh shit, this battle's not going well. Don't worry about it. I wasn't planning on doing what I was planning on doing anyway. You know?
Okay, when it said how, I was thinking TE, so never mind.
All right.
I didn't understand what it meant.
A predominance of dynamics in any social group renders it unstable, prone to endless change, and sensitive to external interference. Conversely, if predominated by statics, then rapid transformations prove to be impossible due to excess psychological inertia, rendering the group stabler but more conservative. So this is a nice thing about, this is interesting to examine this group right here through this model, because of course we're comprised of both statics and dynamics, but the architecture of the group space is as dynamic as it can possibly be, which is to say nobody feels any sense of obligation to be here. They can all freely come and go. In fact, they know this obviously because they're the ones who decide to come or go. But additionally, I made it clear like, oh, don't think like you got to say goodbye or something. You just come and go as you please. And usually most people do that. So that's a very dynamic thing. You say, well, this is not a stable social group, but it's stable within this system. It's stable within the rules of this local node. So, Basement Overlord, welcome.
Hey.
I heard some good news. I heard you ate 6 pounds of cheese yesterday. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you.
Where did you hear that from? I was trying to keep it a secret.
Your roommate. I got his number. I call him. I talk to him. I check up on you periodically.
Well, I really don't appreciate him, not keeping my secrets like that.
He was proud of you, too. We're all so proud of you. That's why we are so proud of you.
I'll let it slide this time because it's,
Thank you.
you're so
let us have
excited.
our moment of sharing in your glory. Hey, Taylor. So we are currently talking about these dynamic and static thinking styles and reading this shit. So I'll read a little bit more and then I'll get you guys to chime in and I'll try to take more of a back seat since we got a couple more talkers here. But I'll give you guys something to talk about by reading a bit of this thing first. So on the psychological level, the static-dynamic dichotomy controls the degree of equilibrium in the nervous system. Generally, the nervous system of statics can be regarded as balanced and dynamics as unbalanced. This is tied to variability in the internal state commonly referred to as mood. The mood of dynamics, even if rational, can substantially change or fluctuate for seemingly insignificant reasons from an outside observer perspective. God damn it. The dynamic wants total freedom, but it is more dependent on ambient environmental conditions and needs a solid foundation. Statics possess a relatively autonomous psycho-emotional state. Their mood is difficult to spoil and equally difficult to raise. For statics, providing reliable support to those psychologically dependent on them is a routine situation. Dynamics often develop a psychophysiological phenomenon known as synesthesia, a complex relationship between the sensory modalities that result in a confluence between them. Synchronized perception of color, sound, and smell and taste as a single complex gives dynamics a special vividness in their perception of reality. Sometimes fusion of sensation is developed to such an extent that internal images appear indistinguishable from reality. For statics, given the discreteness of their mental apparatus, regular synesthesia is usually a rare exception or the result of special training. So let me just say one thing before I open it up, which is this thing seems heavily biased in favor of visual thinkers. It keeps talking about mental images. I don't think in mental images, so I don't like it when it does that. I open the floor. Basement Overlord, you want to go first?
Well, was this a socionics concept?
Yeah, Maker Bro sent the link. I'll put the link again. Maker Bro, can you put the link in the chat for Homeboy Banana Pants? Taylor, you have any thoughts while we're waiting for Overlord to check that out?
How'd the argument end last night?
Oh.
I've watched the video 3 times, but I can never get past my own talking.
I don't know. I haven't watched the end of it. I don't remember what happened. That was a long time ago,
After
Taylor.
I signed off, did you convince him? Did you convince Hami of anything?
Yes, he's abandoned all of his status views.
I don't believe you.
Oh. That's because I'm lying.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Overlord, any thoughts on this shit or what?
Me?
Well,
Overlord.
I would probably want to read it a bit more just because this is a totally...
Okay, do your ISTP thing. Learn about shit before you talk about it.
No, but it's too fucking long. The thing is too long, so, can you just summarize it for me?
Alright, well, basically, it talks about the different thinking styles being static and dynamic, and it says the different qualities of them in different domains. It's saying in the psychological domain that dynamics are much more mood fluctuating and that they need a more stable environment, but they want more than anything else to be untethered, versus statics need a more untethered environment, but they want more than anything else to lock everything down so it stops moving entirely. So the world's just perfectly ordered and predictable. Everybody acts in a line.
Okay.
But this is actually making predictions on what type you're probably going to be based on your sociotype. So it's not, that bit up there isn't something you're supposed to necessarily self-test unless you're critiquing this page. But Basement Overlord, you would be. It looks like you'd be the logical sensing inference on causal determinist cognition. That's down the page. Causal determinism is what it expects for you. And
Okay.
so it's going to call you a static, evolutionary, positivist, blah, blah, blah. But in combination, when they, like, causal determinism is a bunch of all those other things fitted together. It's a combination.
Yeah, it's like your entire sociotype, and then it determines if you're static or dynamic.
Well, like causal determinist, it has them as a static. But
Okay.
it's not just static, it's a bunch of
I've read
things.
it. I think, doesn't that have something to do with the rings of supervision?
At the top, it said something about it. I didn't read it enough to fully understand it.
Yeah, so I know a little bit about that. I don't know all of it, but basically there's 4 rings of supervision. So that's like, you know, the ISTP is supervised by the ENTP, who's supervised by the INFP, who's supervised by the
ESFP? Because that's the
yeah,
fourth.
ESFP.
Because that's the fourth causal determinist here.
Yeah, so that would be one ring of supervision where just 4 types all supervise each other. So that's one ring, and then there's 3 more.
If you can get the 5th ring from Mordor, you get to make everybody your slave.
the 5th quadrant Socionics.
Yeah.
There are no functions.
Right. Okay, so I mean, the thing about it is, I love the fact that this page is using the same terminology that I was using to describe people as being space or time people, and for the same reasons, which is, number one, I think that what's missing, the one thing that's kind of missing in these things is connecting to the obvious fact that there are time objects and space objects as well. But regardless of that, thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. You can start cleaning up around here right now because there's all kinds of shit around here. You should see the inside of my house. Anyway, that thing I was going to say, whatever it was. Other thoughts? Okay.
What'd you say?
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, I thought.
I totally forgot.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, we interrupted when Basement Overlord came in. We stopped talking about static dynamic, and we skipped you going over yourself. I mean, I don't know where we want to go from here.
Okay, well, here, let's talk about the time-space thing a bit, because in my mindset, it works like this. NE is time, TI is time, FE is time, SI is space. But it's in the 4th, you know? You have to have one space, and that's the one we got, and that's why my space is all a fucking mess. And so, I don't think any type has, you can't have all time because you can't have both extroverted perceiving functions. So,
what do you define as time? Because in Socionics, the only function that's directly related to time is literally the intuition of time, which is NI.
okay, well, why I call it time is because for what it says in this page is for similar reasons. It's sort of riffing off Kant, which is that there are those who are dealing with frequency, okay, and converting existence into events, and there are those who are dealing with extent and converting existence into objects. And so we all have this kind of episodic memory that's event based, but a static person will tend to convert that further into objects. Now, like I said, nobody's pure because you can't have both introverted or both extroverted perceiving functions. But and then the T and the F are reversed. So FE is the one. A cool theory about EN blah blah utilizing blah blah. Let me see what that says. ENTP utilizing FE to validate logic, whereas INFJ will use TI to validate feelings. That's a really good theory. I like that theory. You guys take over for a second. I gotta take this phone call.
Yeah,
What
well,
up, babe?
to go off of that, I think that's a pretty good idea, especially with FI and TE, because TE and FI, they sort of balance each other out. You gotta have the passion, the feelings behind what the hell you're doing practically. Like why are you making a business in the first place? And I think a lot of ENTJs who repress their FE, they don't really understand why they do the things they do. They just want to make money. Whereas, INTJs, they're a bit better at that. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
Did you say FI?
Yeah, the TE
Okay.
versus FI axis. ENTJs, they don't really know how to use their FI that well, whereas INTJs, they're a bit better, I would think.
Yeah. I just don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should probably say, like, my court codes predict, one of the court codes for, like, in the INTJ section would be goal envisioning. It's like a mixture of NI and FI.
Goal envisioning. So how would that work for you, do you think?
Well, the court code process would be, like, you have some NI visions, and then your FI points at this and says, I like this one.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe for INFJs, they'd see the vision and they might be more willing to be like, that makes sense, versus I like that one.
Right. And that would be like systemizing for perfection or something. I need to work on the name.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's funny to think that INFJs, they have the vision and they think that makes sense, but their TI is not particularly good compared to INTPs or, ISTPs. So their TI might have a harder time deciding what makes sense to them. Like, they can see the vision, but they might not have an easy time executing it,
I think part of the problem is that TI will look for something that doesn't have contradictions, and NI is full of contradictions, so it kind of doesn't work out very well.
Yeah. I feel like INTJs are a bit more casual when it comes to how, or sort of their set of ideals and principles and beliefs than the TI DOMs are. I think the TI DOMs, they want everything to sort of make sense, whereas INTJs, I feel like they can believe something one day, and if it doesn't work another day, they
Well,
don't
the thing is,
necessarily
But Mega
believe
Pro
it.
is the only person I've encountered that can really seem to bridge the gap. That's a weird thing. It's like most of the time I encounter other INTJs and it's headbutting. With Mega Bro, he's out there trying to fucking bridge the gap and find solutions to things.
Yeah.
I know, I believe both sides, but the thing is, one of the sides is really small and unlikely,
Which side?
Oh, okay.
so it doesn't come up.
Just in any theoretical example,
For example, I actually have an exception to my personality framework. It's just that I don't talk about it because it's a small exception. My framework is actually making the assumption that people are bad at predicting what is going to happen. And the reason the negative rights, the inhibitions are part of my personality framework first is because figuring out the framework is really hard and people can't do it. Like, if the limits weren't there, people would do it badly, and they start doing bad things before they start trying to do good things, and it doesn't work very well. And the thing is, that limitation is making an assumption that people are bad at thinking. So the exception to my framework is that people are good at thinking, which is highly unlikely.
In other words, you're saying utilitarianism requires everybody to be smart for it to work.
Yes.
I love to hear you making the realistic argument in the other direction, because I'm always hearing that argument being used against me. In fact, I wanted to make a video specifically about what people mean when they make a couple of different variations of it. You're not being realistic. That's never going to work. That's not how society is. Those kind of things, you know. I did want to talk about those arguments, but that's great. I love that. All right, you're not being realistic. People aren't smart enough to use that normative system. You're so idealistic with your utilitarianism. People just aren't smart enough to for a crazy idealistic, unrealistic system like utilitarianism to work. I fucking love it. I fucking love it. That's perfect.
But specifically, it's too complicated, and people can't hold that much information in their mind at once, reliably, in order for them to do it accurately. And you have to have a lot of information. You have to process it very accurately, and you'd have to do it very quickly.
And also emotions have to be set aside, right? People just get so emotional.
Well, I mean, I don't think they have to be set aside. I think they have to be understood in their proper context. See, that's the thing. It's like individuals don't seem to understand that depending on what you're discussing and what's in dispute, there are different sets of framework that you have to operate under. So an argument that works fine and is appropriate for a relationship dispute is not going to be appropriate and work fine on a policy level. And I think that's basically the issue, is they haven't done that metacognition about how to talk differently about different kinds of disputes. I wanted to say about the time and space people that my theory on it is pretty simple. This is what I was going to say, but I forgot earlier. Which is that time people, everybody has to, we have to concretize, we have to make concrete and remove it from its reality, which is a fluid process. We have to make concrete one half of reality so that we can see and do work in the other part that's actually still moving, right? We have to have some place to stand. So basically, whether you're a space or time person says whether what you make concrete and whether you expect the other side to be fluid or concrete. And that's going to determine how fussy you are, basically. So, like for me, with NE, in the dominant slot, I am expecting the status quo of ideas to stay the same as be static, and for me to be able to work off of it. And so I'm constantly moving between new static realities. It's only a status. It's never actually in flux. It's just a series of statuses. Okay? That's for NE, or I'm assuming the reality is static like that, and I'm going to build all the building stuff, the work, the fluid processes is done by me upon reality. With TI, I assume that, and the other thing is I think out there is fluid, and I want out there to be fluid. With TI, I think that the ideas within me are fluid, and I want them to be fluid, and I think the ideas out there are static, and I want them to be fluid. So that's why one of the reasons why I'm so contrary. And because I'm so time-oriented, I want everything to be fluid, right? So in the third one, I think that my own feelings are static, that other people's feelings are fluid, and I want them to be fluid, except I have an additional problem. Because it's in my third slot, I can't actually keep track of the fact that people's emotions change between meetings with me. So I think if they were mad at me, if they were mad when they last talked to me, even if they weren't mad at me, I sort of intuitively feel as though they're still mad 2 weeks later. Oh, I remember last time I saw you were mad. Why aren't you still mad? Did something change? I thought your emotions remained static while I was away. Because I'm not good enough at FE to operate abstractly on that level, because it's not that high up in my stack. And then in the fourth one, but anyway, I think their emotions are fluid and I want them to be fluid. That's why Trenton's always spiking shit out, right? He's like, I will control your emotions. They are fluid. I will prevent you from feeling bad things about me by telling you why you can't feel that way about me ahead of time, in case you might feel that way about me. That's quintessential wanting them to be fluid, but actually acting as though they were static, but then trying to make them fluid. And then in the last one, SI, I assume that that the outside world is static, and my job is to go there and make things happen, make shit happen, right? I assume that that's static and it should be fluid, and I assume that I'm static. I assume that I'm static. That's the thing that's assumed. Like I have to It's the thing that I concretize. I think of my own identity as static, but I'm really bad at it. So I feel like, oh my God, to have an identity, I need to have all these little static slabs of personal information, and I don't have them. And I haven't kept track of them. And oh fuck, I have no identity. I don't exist. So that's my theories on time, space, what do you think statics, what do you think fluid, and how it makes you fussy and stuff like that.
All right, let's see. I'm interested to see how NI would be static then.
NI is static because it assumes the truth comes in already fully realized things. And it thinks it should. So it's static, static. NI is static, static. It assumes the truth within you stays put, and it assumes the truth out there comes to you in static, completed sets.
The whole truth is, but when it's mixed with SE, like the current situation says, hey, this part of the truth is more relevant at this moment.
Okay, but yeah, I'm sure that's the case. I'm just saying that when I'm trying to assess somebody as being either a time or a space person, this is how I'm thinking about it in terms of assessing them. So if you're an INTJ, you're as space as you can be. You think that in the dominant slot, you think that the truth within you stay put until and don't change until messed with, and you assume the world out there produces to you complete and full truths. And then so you think it's both static in both places. When the world is not being static with its truths, when it's not agreeing with your framework of static, like, well, it's all about do we get this thing done, or do I agree or not agree with my position and stuff, then we have conflicts. And then the second one, you guys assume that the world outside, the logic of the world is static. You're trying to figure it out, right? Trying to deconstruct the universe and understand how it works. So, same thing, but in reverse, all the way down. It's turtles all the way down.
Well, it's interesting because, Socionics actually has a static dynamic dichotomy, and I think it's actually slightly different than the ones you said. Like, I think NI is dynamic in Socionics, but the reasoning they like use for it is different. Or looking at it right now. Let's see.
They probably haven't eaten enough cheese. Eric INFJ does like to deconstruct the universe. Congratulations. When you get it fully dismantled, call me over and we'll see if we can build a new, different universe out of it. It'll be better next time. We'll get rid of ducks. Nobody likes them. Shit all over the place.
Nah, dude, that's pigeons, man.
Oh.
Ducks are nice. They shit in the pond, so you don't have to deal with it.
They pollute our waterways, based on our word. Okay, let's end this video, and unless you got any parting words of wisdom.
Yeah, buy a Brita filter, because then you won't have to deal with that.
Totally. Thanks for watching.